So I have been asking myself this question for a bit now after playing through a lot of older racing games and playing some of the new ones and then going back and forth to the old ones to the new ones. I keep wondering, should we go toward a more focused story-driven racing game, or should we do more of the festival racers? Now, the reason why I wanted to talk about this today, man, look, I feel like a lot of people really have different topics and stuff like that about this said subject that I really want you guys to talk about in the comments. I really am curious to see what everybody else thinks because there is multiple sides to this. The one I have been noticing people saying is, yeah, you are probably going to be like, well, you know what, Blocked? Here's the thing. We are going to have a story-driven game. That's going to be cool, but if we do the story, then pretty much everyone's going to want to rush through it, or you do it, then it basically doesn't matter. Then a lot of players are probably going to come in and say, well, the thing is, we also do just like racing and stuff. We might not care about the storyline and all that, and maybe it doesn't really matter. And it really is insane, though, because there is a lot of different sides to this. Now, personally, playing through a lot of the older racing games, I gotta be real, I really have been enjoying it. I think going through the storyline of something like Need for Speed The Run, which you guys are going to see in the background, mixed around with some other games as well, like Need for Speed Carbon, I really do feel like a lot of these games probably have a story-driven aspect to them that make them even more interesting. And that's something I really was thinking about, though, because they probably could make some of these story-driven aspects of the game maybe something similar to Need for Speed The Run, to where you have to hit buttons or, interact with the cutscenes and stuff like that and really get into it and stuff that makes you engage into it. Maybe that could also be another way to do it. And I feel like in a way that might make players probably enjoy a single player part or like a story driven racing game a bit more if it's going to be more interactive instead of sitting there through the cutscenes racing to one part and then going, okay, that's cool anyway. Then you're going to move over to the next part. I feel like that could be a way to mix it in there, which is something I did end up talking about in the crew video a while ago, where I was like, okay, well, maybe the next crew game is going to follow its roots back to something like the crew 1, where it is probably going to be focused on a story. But then again, though, I feel like we're kind of in an era of the entire festival racer. We all do know how successful Forza Horizon has been with it, so some of the other games are probably going to try to follow suit, or who knows, maybe it has to do something with the licensing, man. I have no idea. I'm curious on your thoughts on that, by the way, guys. Does it have to do with something with the licensing on the reason why a lot of games are mainly focused on a festival type of racer? Like, does licensing really play a role in that? For example, if you're going to have a full-on story-driven game like something like Need for Speed Carbon, which again, I will show you guys some of this footage in the background of playing through the campaign, would you guys rather go back to this stuff? But also, does this really play a role into that? Like, if you are going to do a festival type of racer, does that open up more of an opportunity to have more licensing in the game? I kind of wonder about that. I mean, in ways it does make sense depending on the vehicles you see or what does end up happening. Maybe that is going to be a reason why they do it, and that's probably also why a lot of the new games are like that, which could even be a reason why the Crew 2 kind of went toward a festival type of thing, and the Motorfest basically went to a full-on festival type of thing, just like Forza Horizon. Maybe that's going to be a reason why a lot of the newer games do it. We all do know Unbound didn't do something like that, and I would like to believe that the next Need for Speed game would also have a full-on story, hopefully a good one, and they could really take things from each racing game that they've done so dang well in the past and really make something absolutely amazing, like a story type of thing, like maybe The Run, have a multiplayer like something maybe Need for Speed Most Wanted 2012. And again, I'm probably painting a picture of the perfect Need for Speed game, but I feel like something like that would engage in every area and really would get players really into it, right? I mean, if you're going to look at a game and go, okay, well, a festival racer basically throws you in there. Now, the one thing I want to say is I'm not saying festival races are awful, but we all do know they basically all have the same thing to them, right? You jump in there, go, okay, well, you are going to be the best racer ever, Blocked, okay? Jump in there, beat some of these drivers, and you are going to be the number one person in this festival, right? What? Like, a lot of it just kind of all has the same aspect. You go there, you are going to be some nobody that has to race or something like that, or that's kind of a way they do it. They somehow find you, and then you're in the festival. It is kind of weird how they put that stuff together, even though some of it doesn't make sense. But if you look at something like that, then flip it and look at something like Need for Speed Carbon or even some of these old Need for Speed games, you were probably like, yo, these were really fun and engaging, guys. And in fact, when going through the old games, not even going to lie, was pretty much watching these cutscenes going, wow, like this stuff was cool. And I do know some of the old games are basically real people in the cutscenes, which I do know Need for Speed 2015 did that, which was honestly pretty dope. But the thing is, I feel like having a story like that in a game might actually add on to it. And in this day and age, I feel like it could even be something completely different that we never see. We all do know a lot of racing games nowadays all tend to be very similar. So who knows, maybe having a full-on story-driven focused racing game again, but of course a good multiplayer on that, which I would say is going to take years to make something like that. Again, maybe a story-driven thing like '05 and Need for Speed The Run, even something like Need for Speed Undercover, having that story in there like Carbon, and then having a multiplayer aspect maybe like Hot Pursuit 2010 Most Wanted. That way you're going to have pretty much both sides to it to where you can play and enjoy the single player, have like different modes in there like challenge modes or something like that, and harder difficulties like the run, and then have something to where you can jump on the multiplayer, have a fun aspect where it's going to be different game modes and different things like Most Wanted 2012, which to this day that's probably still going to be one of my favorite multiplayer designs. I feel like there's a lot of different ways they can do this now. If I'm going to be 100% real, I would kind of prefer that aspect. Like I do think the story part of it is cool. Now, there's also going to be another part to that, though. Like, yes, I am enjoying the story. I feel like a lot of people would. But I also feel like when looking at the comments from that old crew video that people are like, yo, like, here's the thing. The story is going to be dope, but I feel like most people will rush through it or maybe, go through the story, not really care about it because all they want to do is race. That could be the other side of this. So who knows? Maybe we're not actually going to have more of these type of full-on single-player focused games or having a story-driven aspect to it because many people might look at this stuff and go, okay, well, this is cool, but I really don't care about it. All I want to do is race, which is probably why the festival racers kind of do better in an aspect. And also, you know what the insane part about that is this is also going to have a couple of different sides to it. The first one is you're probably going to be like, yo, all I want to do is race with my friends, or I just want to fly through this, get all the cars I want. I do not care about the story. Which in that aspect, then yeah, a festival racer probably is going to be for you, or at least better. And then people are probably not going to like the progression of those because if you are going through a story, there tends to be progression there, which I'll talk about that here in a second. But the other side of this, though, is people might just want to race, right? They maybe just want to go through and enjoy it. They don't really care about the story. Then you're also going to have people that would prefer to connect to the game itself and really feel how the story's going on, or maybe connect to one of the characters or something like that. And I feel like there's a few different sides to it. Personally, going through a storyline, a racing game, I feel like it's kind of dope. And for some odd reason, as time does end up going on, it really seems to be something that a lot of games nowadays just don't have. If we're looking at something like the Need for Speed games, well, yeah, they do it, but I feel like the newer racing games coming out really don't have much of any type of story to it. Don't you guys think even a smaller type of story wouldn't be a terrible idea in a racing game? I mean, if we look at things like that, you're probably like, well, that's probably a good point because a lot of games nowadays, again, aren't really focusing on that aspect of things. And I feel like a lot of players looking at it would go, well, yeah, I kind of want something like the run again. I really did enjoy the way the game flowed. Like I had to race, there was like a reason behind it. Or you can also jump into like a festival racer and go, okay, well, I'm going to be here in this festival type of thingy and I have to win against drivers I have nothing or pretty much know nothing about, which makes a lot of sense. That is something I noticed about Motorfest. Like they did try to do the entire playlist thing, which we all do know, guys. Everybody's aware that the playlist design doesn't work that much. A lot of people might go, yo, some of these stories are kind of interesting. Like the recent Ferrari playlist, I love the way they actually did the storytelling and the overall documentation of Ferraris. That was pretty awesome. But besides that, though, like you'll complete it and go, okay, well, that's kind of it, right? And this could be something that people might look at and go, well, yeah, that could kind of be a negative thing about a story. Maybe like if they did something to where they have the story come out, maybe they can have a DLC tied to the story that has other content in it. I really wonder how a lot of that stuff could end up working. And I'm really curious to know what y'all think. Like we all do know right now, again, a lot of games really aren't focusing on this stuff. But going back and playing older games, I gotta admit, having the overall storyline driven thing is honestly kind of fun, and it really does feel different. Like, I feel like a world of where we're going to have just festival racers might not honestly be the best way to do it. And again, this could be because Forza Horizon is super successful. So other games are like, yo, let me get a piece of that pie, right? But as I did mention earlier, though, thinking about the entire story-driven aspect of a racing game, it still makes me go back to one thing. Maybe that is why the overall licensing and issues in these games, maybe that's going to be tied to that. Maybe that's why they're not going to have certain cars in there. Maybe they don't want to be part of it. Really does make you think overall. Now, I'm not necessarily saying that's going to be the issue, or maybe that's going to be the reason why, but honestly, man, doesn't it kind of make you wonder a bit? because you have been noticing a lot of games have been going toward the festival thing. Maybe that way there's not going to be illegal street racing, am I right? You're not going to have police in there or something to where you have to outrun like vigilantes or something, and that may end up playing a role in there. Like, who knows, maybe the manufacturers are like, nah, we'd rather have like the festival thing. It's going to be more open. Maybe they could do more stuff with that when the cars come in. I really don't know, man, but I am really curious to know what y'all think about this in the comments below. It really is crazy to think about how I feel like a lot of people might be a fan of the story-driven aspect, but also they do not care for it because they want to go through, do the events, and honestly, neither side is wrong there. But the biggest thing is, how can we come to like a middle ground though and have kind of like a mix of both? And the reason why I say that is simply down to the fact that many of the comments I see going around, people are just kind of tired of festival stuff and they'd rather have a story driven or maybe kind of go away from the entire festival thing. Like, you're going to have the entire map being covered in that stuff. There's going to be like the tents and all that. Maybe people are going to want to have a different atmosphere, maybe similar to the Crew 1 or maybe similar to some of the old Need for Speed games. I am really interested to see what the comments are going to look like, guys. I want to know your thoughts on this stuff. Personally, if I have to be real, I kind of would prefer something along the story part of it. But again, though, have a good multiplayer thing in there. Maybe it could connect to the single player a bit. I don't know. But I feel like that way you might connect a bit more to the overall game and probably enjoy it. And again, maybe have like the entire single player having like the different game modes or like a challenge mode in there or different difficulties like the run, and just throw different things in there that would get players interested instead of having a very forgotten story or little mini stories like the playlist in Motorfest. I really don't know. I feel like there's got to be other ways to do this. Again, let me know what y'all think about this in the comments below. The biggest question I want to end the video off with: would you prefer a story-driven racing game, or would you rather have a festival racer?